In this video, we're going to take a look at how to collect data wirelessly using an LMI Diamondback Digital Indicator and a MicroRidge Mobile Collect USB base. To begin, we need to make sure that we have the base plugged in, and then we can start the Mobile Collect Extended Setup software. We'll click on the Find Base Unit button, and it should find a base on a COM port. I'm on 6 here, and we'll click on the Mobile Module Setup tab. The next thing we'll need to do is put our Diamondback in setup mode by pushing and holding the inches millimeter button here for about 3 seconds. You'll see a couple flashing triangles there indicating that it is in setup mode. We'll then push and release the inches millimeter button again, which will give us this pop-up window here. And you'll see that it's not associated with the wireless base unit. To do this, we click on the third option here and send the setup to the mobile module. We'll then get a message saying that this was successful. Click on OK, and we can click on Close. Now the next thing we'll need to do is take the gauge out of setup mode. And then we can use one of the features within the Mobile Collect Extended Setup to make sure that everything's transmitting correctly. Click on the S/P icon towards the top of the screen and then push the data button on the gauge. And you see the measurements are now coming across, broadcasting first the measurement and then the wireless gauge ID of the Diamondback. Once we see the readings are coming across correctly, we can go ahead and shut down the program and start creating our part file in LMI's Universal Gauge Interface software. Now I'm going to create a bare bones data collection program using Universal Gauge Interface. So I'm going to double click on my icon here, click on Create a Part File, and then I'm going to be presented with these 6 steps that I must go through to complete the part file. So the first thing I need to do is give the part file a name. And then I have to store this somewhere. I'm going to use the default location, which is C Program Data LMI Corporation part files. I can then click on Next, click on Next again. And in this screen, I'll generate how many points of data I need to take. For this particular instance, I'm going to take 10 data points. So I'll type in 10 and then hit the Enter key. And when I do that, it creates this grid, which is not unlike an Excel grid. The first column here is for characteristics, so I can name each one of my points, or I can just leave them as point 1 through point 10, which is what I'm going to do for this demonstration. Next, I have the description column. This is where the wireless ID for the Diamondback that I'm using is going to go. I can then click and drag on this cell and use the right click button and click on Fill as a little shortcut here. The component column I'm going to leave blank. However, I do need to change the gauge type column here. I'm going to do a shortcut and click on Gauge Type Setup here. And I'm going to choose Wireless Diamondback or Wireless D-Back here from my drop-down box. And I'm going to apply this gauge type to all 10 of my points. Likewise, I'm going to do the same for my COM port. Now this is the port that the MicroRidge USB Mobile Collect base is plugged into. For me, it's going to be COM 6. Again, I'm going to apply this to all 10 points. And then I'm going to leave the rest of my measurement information here as defaults as well. So I'm going to have an upper spec limit of 2, a lower spec limit of -2. I'm going to click on Next. I'm not going to add any graphics to this part file, but I am going to increase the font size by clicking on the Font button. And we'll just make this, say, 28. It makes it a little bit easier to read when we're actually out there taking data. And I'm going to click on Next, and I'm not going to have any inputs for this part file, so I'm going to skip on to Export. I'm just going to do a basic text file extension, which means that when I take my 10 data points and I click on the Write button, it's going to write these to a text file. Click on Text from my drop-down. I'm going to have to select a location to store the data. I'm just going to use the default for this, which again is C Program Data LMI Corporation part files. And then I need to give it a name. I'm just going to call mine Wireless Diamondback Data. I click on Add Export, and the last thing I need to do is click on the Finish button here, and then Save. To take data using the part file we just created, we're going to click on the Run a Part File button, Browse, and then the actual name of the part file. Click on Open down here, and then Run. Now when I do this, you'll see my 10 points here that I put in my part file. And this brown box is basically what's called a leader box. It tells me which point I'm actually measuring. So when I push the Send Data button on the gauge, I'll see the reading populate the box, and then the box will advance to the next point. At this point, I would then take my gauge to the next point as well. When I get to my last data point, I'll go ahead and send that, and then receive a pop-up here that says, all readings have been sampled. Please write the data now or resample. Well, I'm not happy with my points 5 and point 6 there. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on these, and you'll notice they turn gray. I'm then going to right-click, select Resample, Selected Readings, and then click. And you'll see that the brown leader box reappears here, and then I can resend that data for points 5 and point 6. That looks a little bit better. I'm going to click on OK, and then I'm going to click on Write. Now, once I click on the Write button, the information will be written to that text file that I set up earlier. So if I navigate to that, again, this is going to C Program Data LMI Corporation part files. You'll see this text file here. I can open it up and have my date, my time, and then my 10 readings separated by commas. And that's all there is to it. And then close that down, continue the process if I need to, and collect some more data.